siblings of narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths. What's your story and how did you deal with it? My sociopathic older sister and I shared a bedroom growing up. I slept on my stomach with my head under the pillow and my stuffed animals on both sides because she would beat me in my sleep. She would lock me in our old, dilapidated, spider-infested shed instead of babysitting me. She would invite me to hang out with her and her friends, all I wanted was to be included, in our room. Everyone would be really nice to me for like 5 minutes before my sister would snap and beat the living crap out of me while her friends laughed. They bullied me all day, every day. I was sweeping the kitchen one afternoon and she walked in. She snatched the broom out of my hands and proceeded to beat me with it. Telephone receivers, tennis rackets, soccer cleats, and hairbrushes were her weapons of choice. Once, when I was 18, I still lived at home and she lived a couple of miles away. I just got off work and she showed up at my parents' and invited me to hang out at her place and told me to bring my weed. Knowing she was just using me, I told her I was tired and didn't want to go anywhere. She left, and about an hour later I left to go get a pack of smokes. As I'm driving down my parents' street away from their house, I see my sister barreling down the street towards me. Needless to say, she plowed right into me and totaled my car. Currently, my mother, my brother, his partner, his ex-wife, and her husband and my niece all have restraining orders against my now 44-year-old sister. She's been banned from grocery stores and other public places for her explosive tirades on other customers. She was arrested for assaulting one of the aforementioned family members, and as the cops were putting on the cuffs on her, she said, "I should have curb-stomped that witch." My dad bails her out of every legal situation she has ever been in, so she has never been held accountable for her behavior. She literally believes that laws exist for other people and not her. She is a narcissistic sociopath, according to all the mental health providers I've seen over the last 25 years. My heart truly breaks for anyone who's in a situation like this where you are just stuck and can't get out. At least you can take comfort in knowing that you're not the only one who has had to deal with her shenanigans. But seriously, she sounds like she needs some serious help, and maybe a padded cell. My sister is a narcissist. She used to threaten me and say generally mean things when we were little, that progressed to her telling lies to get me punished as we got older, and then just being manipulative and trying to use anything to get people to feel sorry for her. My younger sisters used to get called fat and were told that everybody in the family was embarrassed by them. They were much younger than this sister, so she was picking on a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old when she left for college. Her parents have enabled her in doing this for years by telling us that we just had to learn to ignore her comments, and they rarely ever reprimanded her for being a psycho. She is almost 50 years old now and still acts the same way, but we don't have to deal with her when we don't want to. She still tries to divide the family, and she has the best luck with me since she is the oldest and more favored. I recall the time I loaned her something and she came to me and claimed someone else broke it, but I knew how this would go. She would claim that since she didn't break it, she wasn't responsible, and her mother would agree and dad would follow mom. Then I'd just be screwed out of my present that I'd just gotten a couple weeks before. I told the superintendent at school since it was supposedly broken at school. We got home and she whined and complained to the parents, and when she was done, Dad came into my room and scolded me with, "You don't go dragging our personal lives out in public, and we'll handle this stuff at home." He never took the 2 seconds to ask my side of the story, which just reinforced my belief of how it was going to go. My mom then came in and told me that social life was different in high school, and I was in the wrong. Screw them. Wow, sounds like your sister is the gift that keeps on giving. If by gift you mean a never-ending nightmare of manipulation and cruelty. It's tough dealing with a narcissist, especially when your own parents are enabling their behavior. But hey, at least you know you're not alone in your frustration. Just remember, you don't have to put up with her toxic behavior if you don't want to. Stay strong. My little brother is a narcissistic sociopath and psychopath. I come from a culture where the family bond is incredibly important, and no matter how bad your family is, always forgive them, protect them, and take care of them. For 25 years, we lived through freaking hell because of that piece of crap. It really pained me, but I gave up on him years ago. My mother, however, being a Turkish mom, forgave him countless times, but he only got worse. I mean, I knew something was wrong back when we were still kids, but I would still always do my best to be a good brother and role model. I would always protect him and simultaneously get the blame for all his mistakes. My mother was in the hospital giving birth to my oldest sister. We were home alone, and he asked me if he could go out and play in front of our house, We have a great park in front of our home and live in a very green area. I gave him permission only for his friend to come back an hour or two later and tell me that my 11-year-old piece of crap little bro, I was 13, was arrested for theft. We were a well-off family and he was my mom's sweetheart. He never needed money or needed to steal, he just did it for attention, just because he was upset that our sister might take his place. I had to pick him up and I remember crying out of shame while this freaking kid had a smile from ear to ear. He didn't give a crap. Police brought us both home. My parents were back from the hospital with my little sister and the house was filled with friends and acquaintances. I remember feeling so much shame and embarrassment, profusely apologizing to my mom. I felt responsible. Imagine having to hide all your stuff because your house is never safe, never being able to ask for anything as a teen because if I ask for $5, my little brother has to get 50. Imagine having to worry whether you can leave because this little terrorist might threaten your mother and steal her stuff or take her money. For a while, he had a really pretty girlfriend. My mom had hoped this would help him normalize. And he treated her like she was his property. This one time, he was yelling and threatening her, dragging her down the stairs. I heard the commotion, and when I saw it, I rushed to them, slapped him in the face, and put him in a chokehold, and told him if I ever heard him behave like that again, that I'd break his legs. This allowed this poor girl to run off and get out of our house with my little brother yelling how he would end her. He later explained to me how he got angry because she talked back and wouldn't lend him money. When she finally dumped this piece of crap, he called her dad to tell him his daughter was a filthy hoe and sent him pictures of her underwear, etc. He then became incredibly depressed, but not because he loved her. He always talked about breaking up with her and how she bored him, etc., but because she was his property and he felt that he owned her. He then took my parents' new car and smashed it into a wall for attention. Just fast enough that it totaled the car, but also slow enough that he came out of the car without a scratch. I mean, he had his own car, a new BMW that he also got by manipulating my mom, but he didn't use that. He used my parents' car and claimed his car had no gas. I checked it, and it was freaking full. The only person he actually feared was me, so I felt this incredible freaking burden on me to try and keep him in check. I couldn't leave him alone with my mom, and I couldn't move out because I was worried he might kill her one day. I tried to talk with him, but no amount of talking worked. He made 1,000 promises, then came up with some lame excuse about how 19 years ago I once hit him, so this was all my fault. I freaking hit him because he was about to smash this kid's face in with a freaking rock. I mean, I beat up at least 50 kids for this piece of crap. He'd always intentionally pick a fight with older, bigger kids and use my name to get out of trouble. He literally made my mother sick. She was the strongest woman I knew, and this piece of crap destroyed her bit by bit. He ruined over 20 years of my life, and I will never forgive him for what he did. I no longer consider him my brother, family, or even an acquaintance, and in all honesty, I won't even go to his freaking funeral and don't want him to come to mine. Screw him. Well, it looks like your little brother is the type of person who makes you question the importance of family bonds. I mean, stealing for attention and treating women like property. Sounds like he's auditioning for the role of the world's worst human being. But hey, at least you're not alone in your feelings towards him. If he ever needs a hug, he should probably go find a cactus instead. My brother's never had empathy. Children learn empathy at some point, but it was like he never reached that developmental stage. He was unconcerned when people got hurt and he hit and bullied others in school to get what he wanted. Doctors, therapists, medication, nothing made a difference. And it's not like there was some kind of trauma or a reason for his behavior. It's like he was just born wrong. When he was 10, he started taking and dealing drugs. As a drug runner for some older teens, you can't be prosecuted under 14 in Germany. My parents called our version of CPS for help. He got more therapy, some inpatient visits, and his own social worker. He stole my dad's car when he was 12 and got picked up by the cops, and he got his first charges at 14, drugs and assault. My parents were at their wits' end and agreed to have him placed in a group home for troubled teens for a year, but he was kicked out shortly before the year was up. He came home and seemed to recognize in a clinical, detached kind of way that he couldn't go on like this without ending up in prison. He was about 15 and he started being less violent. But he had insane delusions of grandeur and needed everyone to comply with whatever he wanted. If they didn't, he lashed out. He assaulted my dad and choked him because he didn't want to go to therapy. My brother was 16. but also very tall and about 190 pounds. My dad died from a sudden aneurysm when he was 16, and he went off the rails completely. He seemed to think he was the head of the household. My parents never married, so my father's modest possessions went to me and my brother instead of my mom, and that included the car my dad bought a year before he died. It was the first brand new car he had ever bought, a small one, but he was proud of it. My brother made my mom sell it so he could get his half of the money. It wasn't even a freaking expensive one, and my mom was devastated to lose my dead dad's little car. On a particularly bad day, he told my mom that he'd have no trouble getting a couple of guys to run her off the road when she went out. When the threats got stale, he'd beat me up every couple weeks. There was one particular instance where I was actually afraid he was going to kill me. He did his usual spiel of using me as a verbal punching bag because he had a bad day, and I was just burnt out, so I didn't even react anymore. He hit me a couple of times and choked me. I've no idea how, but I fought him off, grabbed my phone and ran to the bathroom where I locked myself in before he could get to me again. He was trying to beat down the door while I called the cops. The cops did nothing. Told me he lived there, so we'd have to get along, and since we both said opposing things, nothing would come of it. My mom wasn't home at the time, but she was a wreck anyway and couldn't deal with it anymore. A couple days later, my aunt came to visit for a couple of days, and my brother was his charming, manipulative self for her. My aunt tried to pressure me into not pressing charges, since apparently I gave myself the dozens of bruises and contusions I had, as my brother had told her. It's been 7 years since we've spoken, and I don't think I'd even go to his funeral if he died. Wow, your brother sounds like the kind of person who would steal candy from a baby and then sell the baby for drugs. It's like he missed the memo on how to be a decent human being. I'm sorry you had to go through all of that, but it's good that you're taking care of yourself and distancing yourself from him. I mean, who needs that kind of negativity in their life? Not me, that's for sure. Thanks for watching till the end, and don't forget to subscribe and like for more of these ridiculous stories. Love you all, and stay safe out there in that crazy world. Much love. Peace.